welcome to NTD News. I'm Cindy Drucare. President Trump gave lawmakers a window of time to fix U.S. immigration laws that are driving the large influx of migrants at the southern border. As Congress goes on break, Trump says he's not waiting any longer. NTD's Holly Kellum reports.
Well, thank you very much, everybody.
President Trump said yesterday that Immigration and Customs Enforcement will start deporting illegal aliens after Independence Day.
Sometimes they're criminals, oftentimes they have to be released, but they're all coming out of the country because that's what we do.
A week and a half ago, Trump said the U.S. would start deporting millions of illegal aliens who have already been ordered to leave the country. A few days later, though, he delayed the deportations for 2 weeks. He said he wanted to give Congress an opportunity to fix loopholes in U.S. immigration law that draw people to the U.S.
Our laws are so bad, and it can be changed in, I always say 15 minutes, make it an hour. It's very simple. These changes are very simple.
Senator Lindsey Graham has introduced a bill to address the main drivers of migration. It's been endorsed by the head of the Department of Homeland Security.
The legislation proposed by Senate Judiciary Chairman Graham would address these vulnerabilities and end the crisis.
His bill has been considered in a Senate committee but hasn't yet been voted on, and Congress is on break for the rest of the week. Holly Kellum, NTD News.
Support for Hong Kong protesters is coming in from world leaders with the closest ties to the city, the UK, Taiwan, and the United States. The UK expressing support today for protesters in Hong Kong after police fired tear gas to disperse crowds who had stormed the Hong Kong legislature. Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt said that while the UK of course condemns violence on all sides, he understands why people in the former British colony are concerned.
We urge the authorities not to use what happened as a pretext for repression, but rather to understand the root causes of what happened, which is a deep-seated concern by people in Hong Kong that their basic freedoms are under attack.
He reminded,
as they actually stated, Hong Kong used to be part of England's rule. And well, they would give up their rule to China. Well, was it really given up, or well, and that's pretty much why Hong Kong is having these protests, is because they want to be ruled by China, they want to be ruled by UK, they want their own independence.
China of the 1984 Sino-British Declaration on Hong Kong that enshrines the one country, two systems rule. Hunt then warned China not to interfere in Hong Kong.
And there'll be serious consequences if that internationally binding legal agreement were not to be honoured.
For weeks, Hong Kongers have been protesting.
So we can see that the British are supporting Hong Kong. And just like the Americas, well, yeah, essentially, America has Soros-backed protesters. Who does England have as their backers?
Against an extradition bill and a direct challenge to Beijing. If passed, the bill would mean that Hong Kong's 7 million residents and any foreigners or Chinese nationals in the city could be extradited to mainland China if requested by the communist regime. In self-ruled Taiwan, which is overwhelmingly opposed to a one-country, two-systems formula for itself, Taiwan's president today also called for the Hong Kong government to listen to its people.
This shows Hong Kong people's wish to pursue freedom and democracy. We also hope that Hong Kong government can face people's requests sincerely.
In the Oval Office, President Trump, responding to a reporter, emphasized why people have taken to the streets in Hong Kong.
Well, they're looking for democracy, and I think most people want democracy. Unfortunately, some governments don't want democracy, but that's what it's all about.
China's foreign minister is warning other nations to stay out of Hong Kong's business, saying Hong Kong affairs are entirely China's internal affairs.
We once again admonish the relevant countries to act cautiously, not.
One, socialism. Socialism is a form of communism. Communism is a form of China.
Interfere in Hong Kong's internal matters in any way.
The demonstrations have been peaceful until one group stormed the legislature on July 1st, the anniversary of China's takeover of Hong Kong. Cindy Drucker, NTD News. The governor of Arizona lashed out at Nike this morning for pulling back a shoe designed especially for the 4th of July. But it didn't end there. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on why the government wants to take back a grant given to the shoemaker.
Colored in patriotism, and the name explains it well. The Air Max 1 Quick Strike, 4th of July. This time, Nike went old school and emblazoned the shoe with the 13th Colony American flag designed by Betsy Ross in the late 1700s. The Wall Street Journal reported that the shoe was to be released this week until former NFL star Colin Kaepernick complained to Nike that the flag was offensive. The company withdrew its sneakers, but following their decision was a 9-comment thread on Twitter from Governor Doug Ducey of Arizona, shunning the company for its shameful retreat. Instead of celebrating American history the week of our nation's independence, Nike has apparently decided that Betsy Ross is unworthy and has bowed to the current onslaught of political correctness and historical revisionism. And a blow to Nike, Ducey then ordered the Arizona Commerce Authority to withdraw an up to $1 million grant provided to the global shoemaker, incentives given to help the company open a new facility in the state. But now without the grant, it is unknown if the company's plans will change. The governor said Arizona will be fine without Nike if they walk back on their plan, and that there is no need to suck up to a company that belittles American history. We messaged Nike to confirm why it withdrew its shoe. They responded, Nike has chosen not to release the Air Max 1 as it featured an old version of the American flag. No mention of Kaepernick's alleged complaint. Kaepernick gained widespread publicity for kneeling during the national anthem in 2016, silent protests which have been criticized by President Trump and others, calling it a disrespect to the country. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
The United
Corporations being owned by the people who endorse them.
States economy set a new record this month for its longest continual expansion. NTD reporter Jeremy Sandberg has the details.
The economy is in its 121st month of expansion as of yesterday, according to the National Bureau of Economic Research. Since the recession in 2009, the economy has grown at an average of 2.3% per year. Previously, the record of expansion was 120 months that ran from March 1991 to March 2001 at an average of 3.6%. President Donald Trump said on Twitter, "The economy is the best it has ever been." The GDP was 3.1% in the first quarter of this year, and the unemployment rate is at a nearly 50-year low of 3.6%, down from 10% in 2009. Looking ahead, the jobs report will be released Friday, and economists are expecting 158,000 jobs added in June, up from 75,000 in May. The unemployment rate is expected to remain unchanged at 3.6%. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
All those numbers don't lie, but liars use numbers. And
70 years ago, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization was created to provide collective security against the Soviet Union. Today, the U.S. and its 28 NATO allies are trying to decide how to tackle the threat from Communist China.
Soon after U.S. Acting Secretary of Defense Mark Esper took office last week, he joined a conference with defense chiefs from NATO allies in Brussels. They discussed the threats coming from China, including China's attempts to gain dominance in 5G networks.
This is part of a persistent effort by Beijing to rework the international order to its advantage. We have seen this with China's militarization of global commons, its predatory economics, and its state-sponsored theft of intellectual property.
cannot argue with them.
NATO is awake to this threat, and we are adapting ourselves as prudence demands.
The latest warning from transatlantic advocacy organization, the Alliance for Securing Democracy, is that Beijing is using its economic clout to make the world more conducive to authoritarianism. It says European governments and NATO have failed to treat China's actions as seriously as they have for Russia. Experts say China's threats to NATO countries come from all industries, including economics, trade, defense, technology, information, and ideology. From the Arctic to Huawei's 5G to the Belt and Road Initiative, they say China's ambitions to intervene are unprecedented.
They're using our institutions and our norms and our values against us in ways that we hadn't necessarily envisioned towards their.
And that is why we shall not censor ourselves on the internet or anywhere. We shall remain independent, as to make it harder for the opposition to mimic our activities, to blend into our culture. We don't need clandestine terrorists bringing down our sovereignty as earthlings.
Authoritarian agendas.
U.S. Vice President Mike Pence raised celebrations in April that in the coming decades, NATO will face the question of how to adjust to the rise of the Chinese Communist Party. And he said that it's imperative that they do adjust. Experts, however, say that NATO's assessment of and strategic thinking about this threat has just begun.
But I have no doubt that it is a very, broad-based and comprehensive competition, and we need to start talking about it much more.
He said these conversations will drive toward understanding the threat better and working to make sure all of China's damaging influences and activities are minimized. Reporting by Kitty Wang, NTD News.
Paul Whelan, the American who has been detained in Moscow for 6 months on charges of espionage, is asking for help from the U.S. government.
For 6 months now, Paul Whelan has languished behind these grim walls of the tough Lefortovo prison in Moscow. He faces the daunting prospect of 20 years more if found guilty of the espionage charges that he denies. For months.
I think I've heard this guy's story. He was a business guy.
US diplomats have been expressing concerns for the former US Marine's welfare. Whelan himself spoke of alleged mistreatment in a recent brief court appearance.
I've been threatened. My personal safety has been threatened. There are abuses and harassment that I'm constantly subjected to. There's a case for isolation. I have not had a shower in 2 weeks. I can't use a barber. I have to cut my own hair. I can't have medical treatment. I can't have dental treatment.
It was at this upscale hotel in central Moscow where Whelan was detained last December by Russia's Federal Security Service, the old KGB. Details remain murky, but his state-appointed Russian lawyer confirms Whelan was arrested shortly after accepting a flash drive containing classified information, which could have been planted, he said, on purpose. An acquaintance put that top-secret information into Whelan's trousers, his lawyer told reporters last month. He had known that person for 10 years, the lawyer added, and regarded them as a friend. Indeed, it seems Whelan cultivated a range of social media friendships with Russians, including former and active members of the Russian military, regularly posting photos and messages in Russian online. His family says he was in Moscow to attend a wedding to help show American guests around the city he knew so well. His friendships, his job in corporate security, his multiple passports from Britain, Canada and Ireland, as well as the US, seem to have flagged Whelan for special attention. He regards himself as a hostage.
I want to tell the world that I'm a victim of political kidnap and ransom. There's obviously no credibility to this situation. This is retaliation for sanctions. There is absolutely no legitimacy.
It's been speculated Maria Butina, a Russian gun rights activist imprisoned in the US for acting as a foreign agent, could be swapped for Whelan. Or Victor Bout, a Russian arms dealer dubbed the Merchant of Death, sentenced in the US to 25 years behind bars. Earlier this week, the Russian Foreign Ministry raised yet another possibility that this man, Konstantin Yaroshenko, convicted in a drug smuggling conspiracy in 2011, could also be returned in exchange for any American national held in Russia. This so-called small step, as the Russians phrased it, could be Paul Whelan's best hope of getting home soon.
Just a couple of days away from Independence Day, fireworks may be a hallmark of the 4th of July, but most importantly, be sure to keep yourselves and your loved ones safe. Even if you don't light the fireworks yourself, make sure you stay aware of your surroundings. According to a 2018 report by the Consumer Product Safety Commission, more than 9,000 Americans were injured and 5 people killed nationwide last year just from handling fireworks. So if you want to get some sparks flying, be sure it's legal in your area, you keep water nearby, don't relight a firework, and don't give them to kids. France's Fashion Week is now on. NTD's David Vives has a story on designers mixing classical beauty with high fashion in their latest autumn-winter collections.
A heat wave striking France has forced many businesses to
That gown was gorgeous.
close shop temporarily, but it hasn't impacted fashion designers presenting their new autumn-winter collection, nor their audience seeking inspiration for future outfits.
It was so beautiful and so dramatic, and I felt like it was a very cinematic collection.
Fashion Week is held at different venues throughout the cities in prestigious hotels like the Maroilles, that today welcome designers such as Alim Youssouf and the show Rouge Amour.
These one-of-a-kind outfits have to abide by strict rules, which distinguish them from their mass-produced counterparts. Like this white lace dress or this purple silk one, which are made to measure wedding and evening gowns, a signature of designer Alim Youssouf. For her Rouge Amour collection, Yua Gakowska featured glimmering dresses and jewels in her pieces, reflecting the classic, glamorous echelons in Paris.
French culture always in our life, so
Yes.
It's for us we are proud that
Haute Couture Fashion Week runs until July 4th. Reporting by David Vives, NTD News.
Belgium's Prime Minister Charles Michel said today that Europe is facing immense challenges. He will soon head up the next European Council as president.
If confirmed by the European Parliament, he will replace Poland's Donald Tusk as European Council president for the next 5 years.
And I am convinced that it will be very important to protect and to promote our unity, our diversity, and especially also our solidarity.
Michel is Belgium's second premier from the French-speaking Liberal Party. He currently heads a caretaker administration in Belgium after an inconclusive election in May, with talks on forming a new government continuing.
Un gouvernement belge qui puisse être formé dans des délais raisonnables.
Leadership of the European Commission is also seeing a shakeup. German Minister of Defense Ursula von der Leyen was nominated as European Commission chief today. If confirmed by the European Parliament, she will be the first woman to lead the Commission.
For the first time, Egypt's 4,000-year-old Lahoun pyramid has opened its doors to the public, displaying a network of passageways and an ancient burial chamber.
It took a small team of archaeologists about a year clearing out the burial chamber inside the pyramid, which had been covered in rocks and debris since its discovery. A variety of artifacts were excavated and placed on display outside the pyramid.
Amulets, scarabs, shells, chains.
All things that don't point to their technology.
Kittens, which is still in perfect condition of preservation.
Sarcophagi bearing preserved paintings showing hues of green, red, and white were also on display in glass cases next to a collection of painted masks. The pyramid has been closed since its 19th century discovery, but the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities decided now to open it up as a tourist attraction.
Temperatures in Serbia reaching 102 degrees Fahrenheit today. At least the penguins know how to keep cool.
Belgrade zoo staff keeping water temperatures at a refreshing 68 degrees despite the sweltering heat. Penguins and seals splashing around in the cool water while visitors look for shade. The surge in temperatures comes after weeks of unusually severe thunderstorms in parts of Serbia, Bulgaria, Romania, Bosnia, and Croatia, triggering floods and extreme humidity.
And that's all for today's NTD News. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Cindy Drew Care.
And that's why I like NTD News. But, all right, take care, be safe, be kind, stay strong, and, yeah. Oops.